So there's a fella on social media calls himself Art on Shirts FC, and he actually sent me this. He's painted David Platt on the back of this Villa shirt. It's hand painted. It's literally oil.
It's incredible.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
When it's in the background, it looks like a picture. It's that good. You wouldn't think it was hand painted. It embarrasses my 2001 NTL Diodora long sleeve in the background. Not quite the same.
No, just when you're paying for them yourself, mate. When you get gifts like that, and it's a different story.
I wanted Chelsea to win that. Is that mad?
Why?
It is mad, yeah.
Because I have a theory that we need Chelsea to be fighting for something when they're playing Newcastle and when they're playing Forest at the end of the season.
Yes, I like it.
I've been deep diving into this running, and I've gone so far to thinking that. I mean, don't get me wrong. If Fulham won, I'd probably just be like, yeah, fine. But I don't think it's that. Pretty heartbroken when Neto scored, but in the end, I was kind of like, you know what, might actually work for us in the end. So
I think Newcastle and Forest both look gassed as well. They look like we did this time last year.
Yeah,
that's true.
So it's not squad thinkable that we could end up finishing third or something.
I backed us to finish top 5 and win the FA Cup, and everyone's like, "Oh, you changed your tune. You weren't saying this 8 weeks ago." Yeah, because Villa were crap 8 weeks ago.
Totally.
No, nobody could have foreseen Villa winning 5
8 weeks ago, we got beat 7-0 by Palace.
Hello and welcome to the Claret and Blue podcast Q&A. I'm your host, Dan Rowlandson, joined as always by John Townley, but also for the second week in a row, we've got a third addition to the show. Special guest returning to the show for quite a while, actually. Rob, we were just chatting before we started. Villa were probably mid-table the last time you were on.
Got hammered up at St James's Park, I think, and I was getting pelters for criticising Anthony Gordon's choice of hairstyle.
Yeah.
What I can say is, Newcastle seem to have got worse, and so has Anthony Gordon's hair. So I'll stand by that comment. Yeah, nice to be back.
There probably will be a bit of an overlap of Newcastle fans still watching, seeing as we've just played. I'm sure they'll be delighted to see you.
If one of them can come up with something original about me being bald, I'm here for it. Make me laugh, and you'll get a round of applause. But you've got to make an effort. I've heard it all before.
This is the Q&A. There's a lot of things to get into, but we are in a weird kind of purgatory kind of state until the next game, which is obviously Manchester City on Tuesday. So a very quick turnaround, which I actually think is a good thing. We're going to dive straight into the questions. We obviously all know and have spoken about how big a result that win against Newcastle was. We've done the post-match show. John, you've done your walk and talk. So we're going to dive straight into the questions. First of all, from Craig, who said, if we had paid 50 to 60 million for Kamara and Tielemans, would they be getting the respect they deserve? Absolutely as good as Tonali and Bruno, but for some reason nobody seems to notice. Bruno, Joelinton, Tonali are heralded as the best midfield in the league, and to be honest, I kind of agree. It's certainly right up there. But Kamara and Tielemans in particular, and McGinn, made them look silly at the weekend.
Perhaps the lack of fanfare that comes from them being free transfers might have an impact on it. I think just generally the lack of media attention that we get beyond Ollie Watkins and Marcus Rashford, we don't tend to get a lot of publicity. Even after the Chelsea Fulham match today, I saw that the BBC put up a clip of the race for Champions League places is hotting up, and they only showed the top 6 and didn't show us. So it just kind of speaks volumes as to the way we get looked at as a club. And to be honest, I don't care. That's absolutely fine if that keeps the pressure off us. If it's something that players use to motivate themselves, that they're not getting the right levels of respect, because particularly the two lads there, Tielemans and Kamara, they deserve the respect of probably anybody in Europe. The way that they're performing, Tielemans in particular, I think with Kamara we've got a base level of what we expect from him, but Tielemans just seems to keep getting better and better. I thought he was outrageous yesterday, getting stuck in, covering ground. I think back to what the Leicester fans were suggesting on social media when we signed him. So like, he's washed and he's this and that. No chance. Absolutely no chance.
You're right. Just away from those two for a sec, I saw that league table you're referring to, and to not include Europe's most informed team across every league over the last 10 games is absolutely crazy. Kamara and Tielemans, John, best midfield in the league?
Put it this way, if you offer me another combination of midfielders, I wouldn't take them over Tielemans and Kamara right now, if that answers the question.
I'd say that means you think yes then.
Probably, but it's difficult because, of course, Bruno and Joelinton Tonali, first it's a different kind of system, but also you're talking on the back of they're playing every game. Tielemans has played lots of football. Kamara not as much because he's had a couple of injuries and whatnot, but to beat the base for that midfield, it does help having John McGinn running around as well. But yeah, the two of them have been exceptional. I find it funny because apart from maybe a few stat nerds on Twitter who kind of sing Tielemans' praise that aren't Villa fans, outside of that, as Rob says, other media outlets and whatnot, if you were not a Villa fan and you didn't watch the games, you would have no idea that Tielemans is playing to the level that he is and that he should probably be named in the team of the season in the Premier League. Like, really, that's the level that he's playing at. And you'd probably say Kamara should be in and around it as well, but then I think you're kind of going into the territory of, Villa fan taking over the team of the season because every club has those players. Like, Newcastle fans will be saying, but Tonali should be in there. So it's difficult. They've all played to a really high level this season, but on Saturday, we came out on top in what was a crucial battle in the midfield. I can't remember who played at St James's Park, whether Kamara and Tielemans played together there as well. Can't quite remember. I think they probably did. I know we were down to 10 men, so it's kind of hard to judge that. But it felt like one of those games where we've played Newcastle before and they've thrashed us 5-1, or we've lost 4-0 or 3-0, but we've beaten them 3-0 and beat them 4-1 as well. So, we turned up on the day. We wanted it more than them, and then that would have been, that midfield would have been key to whatever win we got on the day, and in the end we went and thrashed them. So yeah, Tielemans, superb season. Kamara as well. Kamara is a player that you just need to watch. There's going to be stats like duels won and interceptions, all these things, but ultimately if you just watch a football match and if you're a teammate of Kamara's, you'll be saying like, this guy is one of the best players in his position in the world, like genuinely. Whereas Tielemans will probably get a bit more praise in terms of the outside, if that is at all, because of how he plays. And he's not, I wouldn't say it's flashy, but you'll see some highlight reels where he's threaded the ball from 30 yards into the channel and it's, made a goal and it's a pre-assist, all of those sorts of things. So yeah, combined, they're a fantastic duo. And again, I think we don't forget, but a lot of other people may forget that we sold Louise for, it doesn't matter how much we sold him for, but that was a key player for us last season and even before that as well. And we've moved on seamlessly. And that was our big sale.
Just in that reverse fixture, it was the Onana Kamara pivot with Tielemans further forward that started the game. Tielemans came off at half-time for Watkins, who replaced Duran for being sent off. So, Tielemans only played a half there, but we were down 1-0 after the second minute. So the whole thing was wiped from memory and forget about it and move on. Just one for you here, John, specifically, from a John who said, how many steps do you do on a walk and talk? They range from anything from 10 to 20 minutes and you walk pretty quickly. So couple of thousand steps, maybe.
I've no idea. I used to have a Fitbit when I was about 16 and I never really used it from like 18 onwards, and I have no idea how many steps I take now. It's, 18 minutes walk around, so I don't know, whatever the average is for that.
That's like 3,000 or something, maybe.
Yeah, in and around there. I'll take that.
Are you a Fitbit man, Rob?
Kind of. I actually I've replaced my wedding ring with a wearable device because I couldn't sleep in the watch, so it keeps an eye on my sleep and stuff. It doesn't have any impact other than sometimes at the weekend I can show it on my phone to the missus and be like, oh look, science says I'm exhausted, I need the morning off before a job. Fall asleep in the M6.
Fair enough. Rob, I'm going to come to you for the next question actually, from Holly, because unless I'm mistaken, I think we hinted at this kind of discussion the last time you were on. She says, who replaces Watkins if we lose him in the summer? How can we replace someone who is now tied with our top goal scorer of all time in the Premier League? Now, away from that record, I'm pretty sure you touched on Watkins possibly being the PSR sale the last time you were on, and we were like, let's not get into that just now. It's still a long way to go. We're now closer towards the end of the season, and there has been a bit more kind of rumblings around his future. If he breaks the record and we get Champions League again, or don't, or we win the FA Cup, or don't, has Watkins kind of served his time with us and maybe looking for one big move somewhere else at 29, is he, I think? Give us your Watkins thoughts for the next couple of minutes.
Yeah, and as always, and as with a lot of fans, it probably fluctuates from week to week, really, in terms of, I know he put on an excellent display against Newcastle. I thought he was fantastic, and I'm not having the two that hit the woodwork as being missed chances, because they were just really good efforts, and he was unfortunate. If he'd had a PSG shirt on, both of those would have gone in.
Yeah. During
the PSG match, there were things that Rashford was doing that clearly Watkins just isn't capable of. It's just not in his locker. And I think for quite a while, I'd seen Rashford as probably been, I could see us selling Watkins for 60, 65 million, and then bringing Rashford in permanently and amortise that 40 million over 5 years, and it perhaps makes sense. But on the one hand, I don't know if Rashford has got the goals in him that Watkins has, but then the flip side is I look at Rashford's track record, and he's got 2 seasons where he scored 30 goals. So he clearly can score goals. Ideally, you'd want to keep both of them. I think that the big advantage with Rashford and with Marlon having come in as well, and was part of the reason why Duran was sold, is the versatility that they've got to be able to move around. So against PSG after the game, it was, people were saying, well, perhaps Rodgers should have come off and we could have put Rashford out wide still and he'd have done a job, and we'd have put Watkins through the middle. And Emery clearly values that versatility, even with the midfielders we've just talked about there, of Onana and Tielemans and Kamara. If Onana comes into the team, then Tielemans can move further forward, and it just changes the dynamic a little bit. And I think he likes players like that. So if Watkins were to go, I'd be surprised if we signed an out-and-out striker to replace him. I don't think we'd be. I've heard people mention some crazy names like Vlahovic at Juventus. I don't know if we would. I think it would be somebody that's a little bit more versatile than that. I think ideally you'd probably want to keep Ollie, but it's a difficult one with him, and I think there's opposition that he suits to play against, and there's opposition that he doesn't. And I think it's a case of whether he can get his head around that, and also whether our fan base can get their head around that whatever we spend on a player doesn't make them a guaranteed starter. Onana's not guaranteed to start just because he was 50 million quid. Martson, whatever else. I think it very much is he's building a squad full of options, Emery, and then he will set us up according to what we need. And there are some games where we really, really need the industry of Ollie Watkins, but there are other games where we just need pace and trickery, and that's where Rashford or someone like him will have a role to play. I think ideally I'd rather keep him, but just purely from a football perspective, I'd rather keep him. But if there was anybody in the squad that I was going to sacrifice for PSR if we needed to, or if the toss-up was him or Kamara, I'm keeping Kamara.
I'm inclined to agree with that. I think from a pure footballing decision of, do Villa want a new striker to lead the project for the next 4 or 5 seasons? The answer probably isn't Ollie Watkins because of his age, but there's probably one more year in him. You kind of delay that decision for another season, deal with it next summer. I think there's probably other things you'd want to do this year if it was a perfect world that it was up to Villa to decide what we want to do. But because of PSR and all those different things, if an offer comes in for him, this is probably the last time you're going to get a sizable fee for him, I think. But personally, I wouldn't want to see him go, because I still think he brings value to the side. What do you think, John?
Yeah, this would be purely a business decision, as would any sale. If Villa need to raise funds, we are in the semi-final of an FA Cup. We went to the Champions League quarterfinals, and we're trying to bash the door down for the Champions League again. Like, this squad is clearly good enough. If we made no more signings for 2 years, I think we would sustain this because we have a good profile of players. Obviously, I know the loan players, but if you made them permanent, I'm trying to say. But with Watkins, as you said there, Dan, because of his age, and it is a thing in football where if you turn 30, automatically there's obviously, how do I put it? Your price will go down because there's going to be a more limited amount of suitors, you'd say. So I don't think his price is going up from here. And simply PSR means that you need to cash in when the time is right. Again, I always say this, that when we sold Luiz, we had Tielemans in the door. Barkley was there to get on a minimal fee. 2 players for the price of very little, and then Luiz leaves for 42. Villa will have to have a succession plan of whoever they sell in the summer. Again, they can sell quite a few different players and raise a certain amount of money. But if they want to make a big sale and feel like the time is right to make that sale, obviously we sold Duran in January for big money. But again, even if Villa, and this is, I'm plucking a random figure out of the sky here, but say if they need to make 30 million, well, if someone bids 60 for Watkins, you must ignore the 30 million and say, well, actually, is that 60 million though just good value for this player? And do we take that now? Because in 12 months, that might be 40. That's what Villa have to consider. Again, succession planning is key here, but I trust that the club have done that in almost all the positions already.
Even compared to when we spoke about it in February as to what would Watkins' future be, I think the calibre of replacement we could attract is very different than it was even 6 months ago, never mind 12 months ago. So if he was to go, and like you say, they're talking about 60 million quid, the level of replacement we could conceivably bring in, is totally different.
There are players that will be available on the market as well that Villa could go after. And even if Villa weren't in the Champions League, you'd like to think that they'd be able to get a replacement in that could do the job that they need. But I would also argue, well, does Rashford stay if Villa don't get Champions League? So you don't want to be left in a situation where you need to bring in potentially two players to fill Watkins' void. So it's going to be, honestly, the next few weeks are going to be so interesting for many different reasons, but equally for the club, they'll obviously have different plans for whatever happens, different eventualities, but nothing is kind of set in stone at this stage in terms of who would be coming in. We won't know that until we probably hit the full-time whistle at Old Trafford.
Have you watched much of Delap at Ipswich? I keep hearing people talk about he's going to be the next big thing, and he's rapid and he's a good finisher. I saw him score at Villa Park.
Yeah, I do like Delap a lot. Again, this is going to be completely up to what Emery wants in his team. The only thing I'd say about Delap is he doesn't, as you said earlier there, Robert, the versatility is absolutely crucial for Emery. That's why he loves the Rodgers and McGinn. That's why they played so many games. Tielemans too. Rashford as well, playing in different sort of roles. Delap is obviously number 9 though. But I like that. I think we do need someone who would come into the team and just know where the goal is, because who knows, maybe we drop 2 points against Southampton if Watkins doesn't come off the bench and have a point to prove. There's other games in Emery's tenure, full stop, where Watkins has scored goals that have proved decisive. I forget what the stat is now, but it's something like 11 of the 13 goals that he scored have been either to win a point or win the game. So he's been absolutely crucial in terms of the goals that he scores, and you need that player who knows where the back of the net is. And if you're going to play Rashford, Rodgers, Tielemans, McGinn or whatever, there's kind of a front line and then have Marlon coming off the bench and whatnot, that's okay. But if that's your front line for 55 games next season, I'd be worried, because you want a number 9 there who's going to bag 10 to 15 goals at least.
That stat I saw, it was Matt Law tweeted it after the Southampton game. 13 of his 15 goals have either put Villa ahead or drawn them level. And obviously he's scored in the first 30 seconds of the Newcastle game as well. So Danny says, how great would it be if we had a Man United versus Spurs Europa League final, seeing as they are our final 2 games? I mean, I can't really get on board with that being great. I get it. They might make changes because I don't know when the game's for compared to the final. If they're rotating to rest for the final, or they've just had the final and maybe are wounded because they've lost or whatever. I get it. But I don't want either of them scamming their way through the back door of the Champions League, to be honest, whether we're in it or not. Man United shouldn't even be in Europe this year. They won the FA Cup by a fluke last season. So then to win the Europa League, to get into the Champions League when they're going to finish in the bottom half, they should be nowhere near Europe this season, never mind next. So I can't really get on board with that being great. But John, I can tell from your reaction, you can kind of see the point of...
kind of. I'm just thinking to next season, would you rather Spurs or Man United have more games? I'd rather them have more games. That's the only thing I think about.
Because it'll trouble them in the league again?
Yeah.
I think they're crap in the league regardless.
Yeah, I think they're irrelevant to us for the next couple of years at least.
I think somebody tweeted that at the start of the season that Spurs would finish above Villa, and somebody quote tweeted like, well, a couple of games to go, 20 points to go or something. Like, it's mathematically impossible now. Like, we finished above Man United and Spurs again for the second season in a row. Third in a row, I think, for Spurs. But I was just like, I don't really care about that. I didn't give it any thought because, like you say, Rob, both of them totally irrelevant.
Last season, Spurs only finished a few points behind us, though, and they had no Europe. That's what I would say. Yeah. Under a manager who is going to get sacked. So I don't think Spurs are that far away to what we think they are, if that makes sense. I know the owners he gets a lot of stick, but if they bring in a manager and they get some sort of uplift, well, already they're a bit of a rival for us. And I'd rather them be playing midweek. That's all I'd be saying. I don't want Spurs to be winning the trophy, though, of course.
Yeah, I was going to say, for me, like you say, in terms of an uplift of them getting a new manager, if they've just won the Europa League and they've got Champions League football to lure players in, I'd rather I'd rather it was they were a bit of a joke shop. I think we're plenty good enough to be beating both of those teams without worrying about they've got other matches to play or whatever else.
Yeah, ultimately, I'm not fussed. I'd rather see Spurs not win a trophy, but if Man United win the Europa League, I'm not bothered. Like, I can see kind of positives and negatives for us, but ultimately it's not really on my radar at all.
This would be Man United's third trophy in as many seasons, and they've been dominant for all that time. Won the League Cup, the FA Cup, and then the Europa League. How?
Yeah, I think for the standards that Man United set, them winning the Europa League doesn't bother me too much. Champions League would. That's why I don't want to see Arsenal winning the Champions League. No one wants to see that.
Just the thought of that as a match. It's like remember when Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg were going to have a boxing match.
Can they both lose?
Kibosh on it, and he was like, I just can't think of anything more horrible.
David says, I'm hoping you've got a relatively good estimate here, John, if nothing else. Do we know how much revenue we've generated from our Champions League journey?
Well, it was 75 after the league phase, so my calculations push that to in around 100. Chris Heck, said that the club are anticipating around 360 to 370 million this season, which is basically which is basically 100 million more than what we had last season, which was 265, I think. About 100 million pounds.
Okay. On that then, revenue from Villa minimum. With the post from Damian this week urging us to cheer the team on and help us get to the Champions League, do we think we could have some serious financial issues should we not get the Champions League again? We brought in 100 million plus this year from the competition. Missing out again would hurt us. Now, you said on a recent episode, John, that the club kind of aren't reliant on the Champions League revenue, which I kind of get in the sense of like, we're not going to go into administration if we don't get into the Champions League, we're not going to go bust. But having a 100 million sized hole in next year's accounts, if we weren't to get into the Champions League, is clearly not very good.
Yeah, but also it'd be terrible business for us not to factor in the fact that we're not going to get Champions League every season. Even the big six. I mean, obviously, not all the big six can get in there. So, yeah, it's just not in Villa's project to continually qualify for the Champions League. Obviously, if we get the Champions League, that's a big boost for the finances, but equally doesn't mean that we don't have to not sell players. You know, Villa are still going to have to make some money in terms of player sales, even if you get the Champions League. Obviously, it's just not as much that you'd be required to make. So, yeah, obviously it helps. But also, it's not a situation where it's going to be a huge fire sale and we're going to have to sell off half the team. We haven't put it all on black or anything. It's it would just be very helpful.
Couldn't we just sell the women's team to V Sports for 200 million quid like Chelsea did?
Well, yeah, I think that's something that they are looking at. If other clubs are doing it, all of a sudden, all of the clubs will be doing it. Surely, It's an absolute mess, the Premier League, and obviously the finances that govern the whole, all of the other clubs.
Perfect segue, actually. Zach says, not for this Q&A specifically, but in the future, could we please get a whole episode on PSR, a breakdown of all the rules and Villa's current situation, maybe with an accountant as a guest? Now, we had Dave Powell on a couple of months ago when Villa's accounts dropped for last year, would that have been? It was a few months ago, this season anyway, I can't remember when it was. And he's Reach's kind of finance football expert, and he's very good. So we will get Dave on again when we know a little bit more. Tends to be towards the end of the season. I expect that to be, and obviously, as we've said, whether we know what tier of European competition we're going to be in. Something actually I brought up on the post-match show, I don't know whether either of you listened, kind of gone under the radar a little bit, that we will be in Europe again next season. I think we've given ourselves enough of a buffer over 8th place, and with the games to come, if it's only the Conference League, I think we're going to be in Europe again for the 3rd season in a row, and that's still something to be, quote-unquote, celebrated.
Yeah, I think after the Palace defeat, that was I think I was a little bit worried, are we actually going to be in Europe? But now that we've gone on the run that we've been on and beaten PSG and probably should have gone even better than that and at least taken them into extra time, it feels like anything but the Champions League is almost not good enough. And that sounds mad because I said at the start of the season, Europa League, I would have taken it. And by the way, if we get Europa League, come the start of the season, I will be thinking full focus in terms of getting the Champions League and winning a European trophy via the Europa League. And that'd be great. You know, great times in Europe again, trying to win something. but we're here now. We've proven that we belong in the Champions League and that we can compete in it as well. So,
yeah.
What
do you think about Champions League, Rob? If we weren't to get into it, would you feel disappointed?
Yeah, I would. I think just coming out of the stadium on Tuesday after the PSG match, and I was trying to figure out how I was feeling because I was so proud of the team and I was still full of adrenaline, a bit disappointed. And it was more when I woke up the next day, and it felt like I could only describe it as being a bit like the day after I'd got married, where it was like I had so much build up and so much money spent, and you have an amazing party and it's the best time of your life, and then you wake up and you're like, oh, that's it, then it's finished, has it? The wedding itself has happened. Unlike getting
get rid of that ring for a Fitbit. Don't need that.
To get married again next season. So it was disappointing. I think the thought of not being in it again is really disappointing. If that was the way it was to play out, I'm sure we'd make the best of it. If it was Conference League, how would we still be doing tifos and all that sort of stuff? I don't know. I'd like to think so. I enjoyed the Conference League and coming up against teams that I'd never heard of, and players that I'd never seen or never heard of. I found it really interesting. But like the famous James song or lyric goes, if I hadn't seen such riches, I could live with being poor. And we've had a taste of the good stuff now, and I think that's where we'll want to stay. And hopefully the players feel the same, and that'll drive them through the next few matches.
Another reason why I think we'd be so disappointed is because we know that the form we've shown since the turn of the new year, or maybe just after that, actually, because we did lose to Wolves and felt after the winter window, shall I say? We know that I don't know. We are probably one of the informed teams in Europe.
I think we're comfortably one of the top 5 best teams in the country. Yeah,
it's so obvious where we've dropped the points and how. It's blatant, isn't it? Like last season, we knew we were gassed out, but everyone could kind of just hold their hands up and say, "Well, we've done so well just to get it." When now it's the opposite of we know that we're a Champions League team, and it's only our fault that we don't get into there because of dropped points previously. So that would be the frustration for me. If you add another 4 games onto this season, I would be almost 90% sure we'd get Champions League. But because there's only 5 games left and there is a bit of traffic there, those odds do reduce for me still. It's going to be still really difficult to get in there. We're going to probably have to win it. Well, I say probably. We have to win at least 4 games of the 5. And if you lose to City, it's still really difficult to do. So the point I'm trying to make is that if we don't get it, it'll feel like a real kick in the teeth because we know that we're good enough with this squad. We're good enough to finish 30 or even compete for second if we had this over the course of 38 games. I really believe that.
I agree. If we had a fully fit squad and if we had the winter signings from the start of the season and no injuries, which I say doesn't happen, but Forest haven't had many. Arsenal haven't really had many for second season.
We really would.
I think we'd probably be second. I genuinely believe that. I do think we're that good. I think Forest have been good this season, but Villa on their day are better than Forest. Villa on their day, I believe, are better than Newcastle. I think we saw that at the weekend. And City are a little bit and still not sure.
I got a text from a mate after the game, Everton season ticket holder, and he'd been talking to somebody that he worked with, I think who was a United fan, and was saying that he said we concluded that Villa are the best team in the league. He said, and nobody's talking about it. And I was like, wow. And then I thought about it and was like, got to be in the in with a shout. Now that the players are bedded in, you could say we've hit a rich vein of form, but it's also
just
kind of tallies up with the way things have been under Emery, where it does seem to take players 6 or 7 months to get fully into it. And we saw it with Tielemans last season. We're seeing it with Onana and Martson this season. I think a question I'd ask you guys if we're talking ifs, if the option was, and football's never binary, but if the option was beat Manchester City on Tuesday and qualify for the Champions League, but also it would include losing to them in the FA Cup final, or no Champions League and beat them in the FA Cup final. What are you going to pick?
John, do you want to go? We've done this before, haven't we?
No, I don't want to go.
God, impossible.
I keep just going back to the FA Cup and silverware. I think I'd still rather win the FA Cup than get the Champions League. I really do. I just think we need, if you get silverware, that could unlock this era as a bit of a gold mine or a silver mine under Unai Emery. It really would.
Do we actually need to win the FA Cup this season for that to be true?
Yeah, but the more we say that, when are you going to win?
Next season.
Yeah, but last season we said the same, didn't we? Would you rather take the trophy of the Conference League or the Champions League? At what point do you just win, and then you keep winning after that? It's not a coincidence that Man United, when they're so bad every season in the league, they still win trophies. That's the point of football. No one remembered where Tottenham finished in years ago when they actually won something. Same will be this season if they win a European trophy. No one will care that they finished 16th in 10 years or even the day after. You have to win trophies. That's the point of playing football. And I get the Champions League's important, but as I spelled out earlier, it's also not life and death for Villa.
For me, and then Dan can give his answer as well, I guess. Hearing you say that.
Dan will say Champions League. So
yeah, well, I would have done till I heard you. And then I actually think it's so rare that other than the select 4 or 5 teams, like somebody wins the FA Cup, that I'd actually back us with the squad that we've got, unless it gets absolutely decimated in the summer because of us not qualifying for the Champions League, which is highly unlikely.
No,
I probably would back us to be qualifying for the Champions League year on year after this season. I think there's plenty of games that I'd look back on and say we should have got more points out of that. We got 2 points off Ipswich this season.
Yeah.
Realistically, those 4 points more now, we'd be laughing.
That makes you feel sick, that does.
The chances of us getting to another FA Cup final in the next couple of years, as we sit here right now, feel slimmer than the chances of us qualifying for the Champions League every season.
I think that's fair, actually, because you're relying on the luck of the draw in the FA Cup. I know it's less games to get to a final, what is it, I don't know, 6 or 7 or something, but you're relying a little bit on not getting, I don't know, Arsenal away in the 4th round and it just being a step too far at that particular moment in the season.
Yeah.
However, you're right. I do think over the course of a 38-game league season where you have to be consistent and you've got to have quality, for the last year, we were by far the best top 4 teams last season. I think we're comfortably one of the top 5 teams this year. Whether we actually get into it or not is depending on some of the results that we've had this year. But like I said before, on our day, I think we're well up in that category of Liverpool, Arsenal, Newcastle, Villa, like, without a shadow of a doubt. But you're right. I think getting to an FA Cup final, you do need a bit more luck. So if we're sitting here in 12 months' time, could we be fighting for the Champions League again? 100%. But will we also be looking ahead to an FA Cup semi-final? Who knows? Because maybe the draw just didn't go our way because we had a dodgy result in the 5th round or something. So,
like I said in the question, football's not binary, so we're having both. My parents have had anniversary cards off 2 different monarchs because they've been married now for 67 years this year.
Oh, wow.
Villa last won the FA Cup the year before my parents got married. That's how long ago it was.
Right, let's move on. From M. Mecca. We are now a good team, but what do we need to be a great team? Do we ever actually have a chance to fight to win the Premier League? Come to you first, Rob.
Yeah, next season. I really think we're going to be in the mix next season. And it's, as somebody who's followed this club for, almost 40 years now, it takes a lot for me to feel confident saying that. But I genuinely think we're not far off being in the mixer, which, it feels crackers hearing myself say it. But I think the big difference between us and the very top teams still is pace around the field. And I think we really saw that against PSG they put 5 past us and 3 of them were from fullbacks. And that tells its own story. And we saw against Newcastle what a good quality, fast attacking fullback can do that can also defend. And Martin's starting to turn into that. I think we just lack that little bit of frightening pace. Rashford gives it to us. Martin gives it to us. Bailey.
Marlon.
Giving it to us at times. Yeah, Marlon's got it for us as well. Emery's style of play tends to be a bit more asymmetric, so it'd be one fullback or the other potentially rather than both. But who knows? We play a different style of football this season than we did last season. It might be different again next year.
Yeah.
But for me, just that's the one thing when it comes to, if teams want to attack us, they don't really worry too much about sending players forward because, you know, they know that we're not that much of a threat from a long ball counter attack. Whereas Brighton, wasn't it, where we got the ball away quickly and Rashford was away.
Yeah.
You know, we've seen bits like that, and I feel like that's just the missing link. The teams that can win the league have lightning quick wide players to call upon when they need them. Whether that's been Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal, they've all got it. And
Leicester.
Leicester,
Yeah,
totally.
yeah.
And I feel like that's the one thing for us that I would expect they'll be looking at in the summer if they don't think they've already got it.
Yeah, three things are going for Villa at the moment. One of them is that they have an elite manager. Second is that at home they can beat literally any team in world football, and they don't lose many games. Obviously, it's just one in the league this season. We should have won more games at home, which sounds almost like we're a bit greedy because we're on such a long winning run. And obviously, Emery is only the second manager after Ron Saunders to go 15 games and beaten in the top flight. Obviously, is it 18, 19 now, and beating in all competitions at home. And the third thing is squad depth as well, because of course we also have to challenge in a European competition and in the domestic trophies as well, plus injuries, plus fatigue, all the demands that come with that. You need a really big squad, and Villa definitely have that. So those three things have got going for them to compete at the very top. I know it sounds mad that we're even talking about it. Experience of winning titles and just trophies as well. I do think we're lacking that a little bit. You've obviously got Martinez, Tielemans has won an FA Cup, but I'm talking about, sometimes you need a 34-year-old centre back who's just been around the block. Like, I'm not saying we're going to sign a Marquinhos from PSG. That's not going to be happening. But that kind of ingredient, I don't think we have that. I still think there is signs where we do look quite inexperienced at points. But it's Emery that sort of drags us through it with a tactical tweak or a team talk or, a shift. So, I don't think we're close yet, but we can certainly get closer, which is remarkable considering all the, financial limitations that are holding us back, holding other teams back as well. But you really do think that if we could be just that bit more flexible, we could challenge for a league title like very quickly.
Going toe to toe, as we've seen Liverpool and Man City with each other, one wins, the other wins the following day, and it's mid 90 points to win the league. I don't see Villa doing anything like that anytime soon. I don't see us winning the league anytime soon either, but I don't think it's impossible if Emery's here for the next 5 or 6 years that we definitely challenge for it in some way. Arsenal are 13 points behind Liverpool in second place, and they've at times given as good as they've got and been in a race to a point of, I don't know, the last couple of months maybe when it looks like Liverpool were going to run away with it. But I think being that kind of challenger and finishing second, maybe 10 points behind the eventual winners, but you were second, you were better than everybody else. I don't think that's a million miles away. On title challenges, Ben says, to mount a title challenge next year, which surprise, in or out, do you think could happen over the summer to make that difference?
I don't think one player can come in and make his title challenges, unfortunately.
No, I'd agree. I think you've made a really good point, though, around the experience of winning trophies, John. Interesting today that Kevin De Bruyne has said he's not averse to staying in the Premier League. I don't know whether we'd pay him £750 million a week, whatever he's earned at Manchester City. But it's that sort of ilk of player, or, where we had John Terry in as well at the end of his career, albeit because the level we were at, he was able to drop down and play week in, week out. I think if there was somebody that's got that level of experience that can come in and do a job and be part of the squad, because, assuming we are in European football next season and assuming we're planning to take the cup competition seriously because of the squad we've got, then everybody's going to be playing a lot of football. So then I think there are going to be experienced players out there that we could get in that can do a job. I think Asensio's obviously come in with everything that he's won. Rashford as well, for the time being. Remains to be seen if they both stay. But having people like that around the place, and just the level of professionalism and the build up to an important match, of them just being able to be, or during an important match, just being able to be like, look, chill out, whether we're winning, losing, whatever, just like, it's all right, keep going.
Do you think there's a position on the pitch that is best suited to that kind of experience? I think the easy answer is like a centre-back, someone who can just kind of steady the ship a little bit. I'm thinking like someone like a Pau Torres. If he's exactly the player he is for us now, doing the role, but maybe he's in and out because Ming suits certain fixtures, but when Torres comes in, he's got that experience. If he was like 32 and had won 3 titles in La Liga or something, that feels like the perfect kind of, he can come in and do a job when required, and he has that experience for the dressing room as well. Does it need to be experience of winning English trophies, or is it just being a winner generally, do you think?
Just how to manage games, I think, for that.
Yeah. I think Asensio is a good shout there, actually. That it's no surprise that we've won lots of games since he's arrived.
Yeah. I think, and the other interesting thing with Asensio is, I mean, you and I have defaulted to talking about 34-year-old footballers, and that's probably the Villa of old. Whereas, if we are going to be regular Champions League contenders, then why not be thinking about players that are still in their prime that want to come and play in the Premier League? It's not like we need to sign a lot of players this summer. We probably could go quite heavy on a couple of players that really make a difference. I mean, I'm going to speak well above our level here potentially, but how we did it with Pau Torres. Nobody saw him come into Villa Park, did they? But somebody like Joshua Kimmich or somebody like that at Bayern.
No, didn't it, Rob?
I don't think we're going to be anywhere near signing it. But players that have, he's not 34 years old and he's won everything. Would Harry Kane come back to him? Let's just go and have Bayern Munich.
I mean, to be fair, you're right, though, because if you sign 35-year-old John Terry, you're going to get a season out of him. And then you're back to the same problem of, well, we need to go and find somebody else with that kind of level of experience. If you can get somebody who's won everything and they're 28, Villa are going to benefit from that player for at least 3 seasons at the highest level. So, it probably is kind of a different market we're operating in that kind of, if you were this as Football Manager, you'd be going, won lots of things, but 33 plus is what we're looking for. You just bring that age bracket down a bit, 27 plus, and it's a different market then.
Yeah, I think we can be a bit more ambitious in terms of bringing that experience in. Not as ambitious as Joshua Kimmich, obviously, but there are players out there playing for big clubs across Europe that will now be looking seriously at Aston Villa as an option for him in the Premier League. So,
we're going to do something a little bit different for the penultimate question. I don't have a name for this one, but they're American. Do you want to suggest a name, Rob?
Brad.
That feels very American. Brad Guzan. Yeah,
Brad
Yeah, there we go. It's John sent in his own question. If you listening at home, John has got an enormous American flag on his sleeve.
No, I don't.
I just didn't copy the name down for this one. But I said, as an American, it's pretty cool that Prince William is a massive Villa fan. Do English fans care about this? And does it do anything to legitimise Villa as a big club? Now, before we answer that perfectly allows me to tee up a little clip of a Prince William related video that I actually filmed in about August of last year. But I lost the clip because I had a new computer, basically. I've rediscovered it a few weeks ago, and I've not had a chance to share it on the podcast, this little story. So I'm going to play it for you two now. We'll talk about it after, and then we'll answer Brad's question as well. Now, for you two, if your reaction is, well, that's a bit shit, this section won't even go in. But that doesn't mean you need to fake your reaction. But I think this is quite cool, but you might not. Okay, so here's a clip from about 9 months ago. Right. So, on the 13th of April 2023, I messaged John Townley with what I thought was a crazy idea, and it is a crazy idea. That led me to send a letter on the 7th of August this year, so quite a long time between the idea and the execution. I've just checked my postbox and found this, which is a reply to my letter from Kensington Palace. I haven't opened it. I'm going to do it now. This could be a rejection. It could be a no to my request. And if it is, the fact I've even got a reply is pretty special in itself. And when it says Dan Rowlinson Esquire on the front, which is lovely. Like I said, if this is a rejection, it's still very exciting. So I'm going to open it. If it's an acceptance of my invitation, this is going to be pretty special. Okay, here we go. Okay, so it is a rejection, as expected. But it's a nice touch. So I'm going to read you this letter. I'm writing to thank you for your letter on the 5th of August 2024, in which you invite the Prince of Wales to be interviewed on the Claret and Blue podcast. His Royal Highness was grateful to you for your kind invitation and for thinking of him. On this occasion, however, I very much regret that the Prince has to decline. As you can imagine, His Royal Highness receives many requests and it is simply not possible to accept them all. I'm sorry to bring you this disappointing news, but do hope that you will understand. And I do understand. I'm sure he's a very busy man. Nevertheless, the Prince of Wales would have me send you his warmest thanks and wish you the best of luck with the podcast, brackets, and the Villa for the upcoming season. A real shame that he's declined the interview opportunity, as expected. I said to John all those years ago now, it was a crazy idea, and it was, but I've gone after many interview guests over the last 5 years of doing the podcast, and more often than not, these ex-footballers don't even give you a reply. So the fact that I've got a letter back from Kensington Palace is a story in itself. William, if you're watching, maybe another time, okay?
That's quality. Love it. if that letter is not, it's there. I was going to say, if that's not in a frame in your downstairs toilet.
No, it was still in the envelope in the drawer. I was just digging it out while the clip was playing. It's obviously silly. I never really thought, but I thought, for the sake of writing a quick letter to the Palace, why not?
I'll do a video on it.
Yeah, I can at least make it a podcast talking point. But yeah, I've not got around to talking about it. This letter was dated 13th of September. I think I said in that clip that I spoke to you, John, about the idea on something of April, so literally a year ago. Too busy going to PSG and stuff, isn't he? So he's got no chance.
Try again. He's had a conversation with Rio Ferdinand. Surely he'd rather speak to
you. Away from that, the original question, does having Prince William as a Villa fan, does it do anything for us? Does it mean anything? I mean, if he's watching, yeah, absolutely. It really means the world. But do other football fans care about this, do you think?
I would throw it back and ask, does it mean a lot to American fans, to be honest?
I think more so.
It feels quite like, I don't know, I'm kind of born into it. Like, I was obviously aware that Prince William was a Villa fan. I presume when other people found out, it was like, oh, right, that's interesting. Why does he support Villa? And that's kind of as far as it goes. I don't really think it elevates us like massively in England, but elsewhere maybe it does. That's why I'd be interested by what Americans thought about it, rather than people that live in the
when he's showing up on the TV at Champions League games.
Huge value in that. Yeah,
that global audience, brand appeal, and certainly more so him than his dad or any of his uncles. So. I think because he is that next generation, and so's his son. So it's not just the next king; it's the next two kings are Villa supporters, which I think is brilliant because them lot over the road get all excited about like Jasper Carrot, like Tom Brady getting paid to show up there, like as if it's some big thing. Literally, the next two kings of England are Villa supporters. Be interesting to see if he still turns up when he's the king. Or if he's sat there in his like cloak and his like shiny hat and everything on a match day, quality. Yeah, we should.
Do you reckon we should bring him out on the pitch for a game?
What would we call it? That could be a good question. Anybody in the comments?
I mean, to be fair, you probably get a lot of money for sponsoring it.
Yeah, exactly.
Chris, if you're listening, that's a sponsorship opportunity if I've ever seen one.
I was talking about it the other day at the match, knowing he'd be at the PSG game, of like, will we get a royal seal like Heinz have got, and Molson Brown and stuff? Will we be like the official football club of the King of England?
I like the sound of that.
I think there's definitely opportunity. I think for him, from a personal brand perspective as well, that stuff does just make him a bit more man of the people. And then for him to be able to talk about football the way he did before that match, unless the royal family start sponsoring the big events, then I don't know whether it'll have much sway on favourable refereeing decisions.
I think if he'd just come out and said, Villa are a big club and this is going to be a great night for the fans, and very cliche, it'd be a bit like, okay, well, he's clearly not been briefed.
I've completely forgotten. I'm not great at movies. Who's the actor that supports Villa? The American guy. What's his name?
Tom Hanks.
I don't know if Tom Hanks actually knows what Aston Villa is, to be perfectly honest. But Prince William genuinely, like the way he supports them and how passionate he gets when Villa score, like that. He's got a lot going in his life, of course. But you feel like he feels it like we do. Like we're thinking about it every other 20 minutes. That's how I'm sure he does support the club. So it's different, as you say there, Dan. He's not just coming out every now and again and saying like, oh yeah, up the villains or whatever. He's genuinely like embedded in it. So
he was obviously greeting all the players as they were going back in after the warm-up.
Yeah.
It didn't look awkward. It didn't look out of place. It was...
There's even a few little tidbits in there, like congratulations on your new contract to Bogard, and just little bits like that. It's like,
and
he could be the most one of the best actors in the world. He's been briefed on here's 10 phrases to say to these 10 different players, but from what I've heard, he genuinely
he's undercover on
kind of thing.
He's undercover on the forums, isn't he? Like, he's embedded in it.
Can he watch this to the podcast?
Genuine fan.
Do you reckon?
I think
somebody asked me earlier, does he watch it?
I don't mean this in a big-headed way, but we've just hit 20,000 subscribers. If he's on forums or social media in some way, he must be aware of podcasts and stuff, like whether he listens or not.
Come to the Ockley Social Club.
But if he wants to come on the show,
get him to do the live show. How close do you sit, like when you're at the match, John, reporting?
Yeah.
Are you in a season ticket seat? You're in the press box, aren't you? Like doing it properly. Are you?
Yeah, but I'm pretty much embedded in the fans, so I'm not close enough to.
Slower tier still, isn't it?
I was just wondering if there was a way that we could, like, if we could sneak in me and my little girl Amelia, perhaps, in the way that people put their kids by the tunnel of like, Ellie, can I have your shirt? We could get Amelia to hold up a sign saying, William, will you come on a Claret and Blue podcast?
I'm sure that can be arranged. I'm sure
we can do it. He does walk through the mix zone. If people don't know, the mix zone is like where players leave the stadium, and it's the place where journalists can ask questions if they want to stop. And Wills will walk through there sometimes.
Wills,
I haven't actually.
You best mate.
Prince William, oh my god. I haven't been so close to him to asking the question, but I do know some reporters who have just chatted to him normally. Like, can you stop for a word? And it's like, oh no, I can't, but great result or whatever. So he does speak to reporters, not in that way.
It'd be amazing if there was like an Amadou and Anana moment where somebody's like, Harry. Your name's not even Harry, bro.
What a delightful tangent that was. I'm glad Brad, the American, sent us that question so I could finally play that.
I hope he's not watching now. I hope he's not watching.
No, he's loving it.
Yeah, absolutely. If I won't say his name, but if whoever wrote me this letter gets wind of this podcast and they want to come on, the offer is absolutely still open. Maybe I should
just got to pepper him with more.
Try a letter every season.
Just every month. What if Brad actually is Wills?
Yeah.
If he's just like testing the water, just testing out.
Am I popular or not? Yeah. Oh,
wow.
Now we're talking. Right, let's end this show, this bumper edition of the podcast. I've thoroughly enjoyed every second, with a football-related question to end from Sean. If Villa win the rest of their games, they will finish above Man City, then likely finish in the top 5. Adding in the FA Cup semi-final, then the final, and we obviously want to win those as well, that would take Villa to winning 13 consecutive matches. We've won 5, 3 in the Cup. No, that's 12, isn't it? Oh, PSG as well. Yeah. PSG, 5 in the league, 2 in the FA Cup, and another 5 league matches. 13 wins on the spin. Can this Villa team do that? And if they did, where would you rate it in recent Villa history? Straight to the top of anything I've seen. Winning 13 in a row across a Champions League. Yes, you lost, but beat PSG. You won 10 Premier League matches on the spin, an FA Cup semi and an FA Cup final, and got into the one of the best achievements of a generation. They won't do that, though, will they? We're not going to win 13 games on the spin.
As the phrase goes, do you want to bet against us?
What are you offering?
Was that the response when Ron Saunders said that?
Well, at what odds? Yeah. I mean, I love the idea of it. And every preview.
One-off matches, we could win every single one of those games. We're good enough.
If we beat Man City, that question becomes a whole lot easier to think about.
But the law of averages suggests you don't win that many games on the spin.
But I would flip it the other way and say we've already done that. Well, yeah, we've how many games have we won in a row? 6 in a row, did you say, Dan?
Yeah.
In all competitions, we've done it already. So why can't we do it again? That's the way I'd think about it.
Yeah.
I don't see many flaws in this team to think, what if this happens and that happens? The only thing I would say is, well, what if Kamara gets injured, or what if this happens? That would be my own if. But apart from that, we can beat Man City. Therefore, we can win against Fulham at home. We can beat Bournemouth away. We can beat Man United and Tottenham. And we can win 2 games at Wembley. So, yeah, we definitely do it. Whether we do it or not is another thing. But, yeah, absolutely, we definitely can. And by the way, if we're not thinking like that, we won't achieve anything. We need to win at least 4 games in the Premier League, one of which probably has to be Man City to get the Champions League. So already, you might as well win your 5 league games. And the other 2 are both cup finals, because the semi-final of the FA Cup it's not a cup final, but it basically is, because you have to send the competition. Yeah. So you have to have the view of we have to win every game now to the rest of the season.
We are capable of beating all these teams, but We got Crystal Palace in the semi-final. They walloped us not long ago and the season before. So, the level of the games, winning 10 games in a row in the Championship is an incredible achievement. But there are some games where you're showing up thinking, within reason, we could probably phone this in with the run that we're on. Whereas for every game we've got left this season, we've got to be bang at it.
Yeah.
But I think, to John's point, if we don't lose any key players through injury, we've got the squad there to be able to rotate properly. There's the mentality within the squad that I don't think anybody's... If you were to ask any of those players behind closed doors, do you think you're going to win every game for the rest of the season? I'd think off the back of the Newcastle result, I think most of them would say yes.
I think unbeaten is absolutely doable. Because I expect us to drop a couple of points in the league by drawing games. Maybe you draw away at Bournemouth or United on the final day, but if you've won the 3 others, that's 11 points, and that might be enough still. Do you not think, John?
No, I don't. But that's a different conversation, I guess.
Reality is, last time I was on the show, probably back in February, we were miles off it. In terms of the form, we were limping across beating teams. We were getting battered off some other teams. Yeah. We'd lost at Wolves. We got absolutely hammered off Tottenham, got hammered off Crystal Palace, hammered off Newcastle. So whereas now we've caught those teams up around us. Yeah. Going into Forest's match against Tottenham, we're level on points with Forest. We were miles off it. So you'd rather be in the form we're in than the form those guys are in. And I think as much as are we going to win all our games between now and the end of the season, our Forest, our Chelsea, our Newcastle, our Manchester City, Jason Tyndall was talking about, it's been hard for us. We've played 3 games in 6 days. But their squad isn't as, on face value, it's like, we've played 3 games and we had Paris Saint-Germain, not Palace. Yeah. But, reality is, I think I read they've had the same starting 11 for 7 games in a row or something. That's not something we've got to do, whether it's fatigue, tactics, whatever else. We've got the options. Even though we've got quite tricky fixtures on paper, Tottenham, whatever form they're in, it never seems to be easy for us. Same with a trip to Old Trafford. They could put the under-12s out and we'd still probably only win by 1. So
take that.
Take that.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the question is, how many of those other teams will see their upcoming fixture against Villa and think, we're in with the right chance here?
Yeah.
Not many of them.
I always look at what's the table going to look like on the final day, and Villa will need to be ahead of the teams that they're playing against because of the goal difference. And they're going to have to finish above 2 of them, obviously, as well. So the way I look at it, it's probably going to have to be Chelsea and Forest. Newcastle's fixtures, they've got a bit of a head start on us, again, including goal difference. I think that they'll probably have enough just to get over there. City, apart from our game, I expect them to win all of those matches. Wolves, Southampton and Bournemouth, again, before the final day. I just think the game against City is absolutely massive. If we lose it, if we lose the game, we can still do it. But we're asking for quite a couple of favours. And then on the final day, we're going to have to win and hope that someone else doesn't win, essentially. If we draw it, we're going to have to still win the rest of the games. But beating City would be a real boost because that means on the final day, if all goes to plan before that, we just need to do our job.
We'll talk about the law of averages. We won't win 13 games in a row. And that is a thing. You might drop a point somewhere or drop a game somewhere and then win the others anyway and win 12 out of 13. And that would still be incredible. But I think something that isn't maybe accounted for when you just look at fixtures on a screen is momentum. Imagine the feeling in amongst that squad if we beat City on Tuesday. You just beaten PSG, yes, gone out. But you've beaten Forest, they were above you. Beaten Newcastle, they were above you, and you're beating City and they were above you. And we're saying to everybody around us, well, yeah, you've got the head start on us, but we're going to guarantee you get nothing that week. We are going to gain 3 points against you every single time. Then you go to Fulham, Bournemouth, Man United and Spurs, teams that we're actually above for the first time in a couple of games. We're playing teams below us. Whatever happens with the FA Cup, again, momentum. If you've won that, and then you go to Old Trafford and you go, well, you've got to win. We're trophy winners now. Like, you're unbeatable, lad. You can do what you want here. You're on an unbelievable run. That feeling of momentum of you are unstoppable. Nobody can beat you. might just drag you over the line and make a 13 game winning run possible. It does feel impossible or improbable, but momentum is such a huge thing, and confidence that, maybe, just maybe.
We can only but dream of it. I think, even in November, December, if you'd have said to me, or even in August before we'd even kicked a ball, that we'd be having this conversation now, we'd been just about beating the quarterfinals of the Champions League. We're in the running for it again. We're in the semi-finals of the FA Cup. I'd have absolutely snapped your hand off completely, and yet here we are. And so I wouldn't put anything past this manager, his staff, anyone. And also, 5th is Champions League. Between now and the end of the season, we've got to get more points than Forest and Chelsea. Is that impossible?
No. We've got to beat City, I think. Like John said, if we weren't to win, you've got to win the other 4. Even with a draw, you've probably got to win the other 4. If you beat City, you can probably get away with dropping a game somewhere. You won't want to. And again, talking about momentum, maybe you do go and win them all anyway. But that City game is now absolutely crucial. And they're not the City of old. They are beatable. They can be got at. And I do think Villa will go there and win. Rob, thank you very much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. We won't wait another 3 or 4 months till we get you on again. And hopefully when you do come on again, we're talking about more success for Aston Villa. John, thank you for joining me as always, and thanks for those who sent in the questions, including Brad the American, my favourite segment of the show, to do something a little bit different. Get involved in the comments section if you've watched on YouTube or Spotify. Share your thoughts on things we've discussed. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, you can leave a 5-star review, please. We also surpassed the 20,000 subscriber threshold on YouTube at long last. It's been a long time coming of us being 19,000 something to finally get to 20,000. We've done something like plus 100 over the last few days, which doesn't sound like a lot, but you generally get 100 per month. To get 100 in a few days is pretty unprecedented for this kind of show. So welcome to the new audience. If you've got to the end of this podcast, do let us know. Cheers, gents. Really, really appreciate it. Really enjoyed it. Thank you for watching along or listening to this episode of the Claret podcast. And we'll be back with a Man City post-match reaction to hopefully talk about a massive 3 points on Tuesday night.